Hi, Professor Alexander. We're from Northside High School and we're 11th graders. My name is Sandra Perez.
My name is Jeremy Hernandez.
My name is Tabari Bowser.
My name is Sharon Jimenez.
And
And this is our video of what caused the Pueblo Revolt.
In 1598, Spanish officials demanded that Pueblos pay tribute to their Spanish crown by working their labor. They demanded that the Indians abandon their religion in favor of Christianity.
These encounters, referred to as the entradas, were characterized by violent confrontations between Spanish colonists and Pueblo peoples. Spaniards tried to turn the natives into the Catholic faith. In 1598, Juan de Onayde began to establish themselves in Pueblo communities. They convinced Pueblos to build churches and living quarters for them. Now, that was restored.
Okay. Juan de Onate sought the mythical riches of North America and succeeded instead in unlocking the geographical secrets of what is now Southwest United States.
The revolt killed 400 Spanish and drove the remaining 2,000 settlers out of the province. For more than 100 years, beginning in 1540, the Pueblo Indians of the present-day New Mexico were subjected to successive waves of soldiers, missionaries, and settlers. Juan de Onayde led 129 soldiers and 10 Franciscan Catholic priests, plus a large number of women, children, servants, slaves, and livestock into the Rio Grande Valley of New Mexico. There were at the time approximately 40,000 Pueblo Indians inhabiting the region.
As early as 1540, Francisco Vázquez de Coronado went to find the 7 cities of gold in El Pueblo country. In 1598, Juan de Oñate set out with the king's permission to plant a colony in El Rio Grande that motivated early Spanish explorers.
They complied for a while before rebelling. The question that we raised were, why did they wait so long? Why did they rebel at all? And I will give some examples to why.
It got to a point where it was very sickening how far Spaniards went to accomplish their mission, which raised the questions in the book. How could Pueblos forget the burning of the Pueblo of Acoma when it offered resistance in 1598, and the punishment meted out to the survivors by Spaniards with swords, steel?
Now, what Spaniards did was cut the right foot off every Acoman male over 25 years of age.
I agree that the rewards and punishments encourage Pueblos to cooperate with Spaniards. Of course, once you're threatened or given something in exchange, your response is to cooperate.
I also agree to this because the Spaniards were just trying to get more power.
I agree also because the Spaniards didn't want to seem weak towards the Pueblos, so the Spaniards wanted to take control, so they rallied and wanted to show them that they have power and didn't seem weak towards them.
But in order for them to gain that power, they would have to hurt people.
But the Pueblos harmed them and harmed their men by cutting off the foot and doing all the other stuff to them.
And I agree because they have no power, so they feel forced to comply with the Spaniards.
I believe that the reason Spaniards were trying to turn the natives into the Catholic faith was because they were trying to gain more power than what they already had. They tried to ban traditional dances and religious icons that the natives believed in. They went way too far when they started cutting off males from the age of 25 or older right foot. The Pueblos had to agree to them so that they won't get hurt anymore. At some point, they got so tired of being treated like if they were nothing, like if they were no one. They, the Pueblo people, rose up against the Spanish conquistadors to fight for their religion and their beliefs. Natives won the battle and were finally free from Spaniards after 12 years.
The glue that held most of the Pueblos together during the revolt had dissolved, and Vargas,
Who was the leader who pushed for the revolt?
skillfully took advantage of Pueblo feud. Onayde put down a revolt at Acoma, Puebla, by killing and enslaving hundreds of the Indians. The Acoma massacre would instill fear of the Spanish in the region for years to come. Through Franciscan missionaries were assigned to several of the Pueblo towns to Christianize the natives.
An epidemic of Indian rebellions seemed to have swept across northern Spain in the 1680s. One of the arguments was that the Pueblo's exceptional victory is the beginning to interest us as much as King Philip's sorrowful defeat that is supposedly talked about more in high school and college too textbooks.
The book had an interesting theory. The Pueblos didn't have enough written documentation to prove significant insights to the Pueblo Revolt, which underlines the idea of explaining motives of other peoples in other times is always a risky task.
I agree, because you have to think in the mindset of people from centuries ago.
This is true because we don't know the circumstances they lived in.
And we also didn't know how their emotional state towards the Pueblos and their causes.
For example, if you can, think about what someone from the Pueblo Revolt might want to do after the revolt. See, you can't really do that. I know it might not be the same concept, but it all revolves around one specific thing, which is the way we think. Furthermore, now or even today, there isn't a war or a revolt for us to even worry about or relate to in order for us to even get a slight glimpse of what their ideas were from 1680. But I said all of that just to say, I agree. I agree that it will be very difficult to think the same as the Pueblo people. Our brains may or may not even be more developed than it was from forever ago.
Historians have continued to see forced labor as a fundamental cause of the Pueblo Revolt, while other historians have prompted the Pueblo Revolt as a blow for religious freedom, a reaction against Frenchism, efforts to obliterate the Pueblo religion.
Franciscan scholar Celeste Escalante said one of the reasons of the Pueblo Revolt outburst was the love of which many old men retained for the ancient mode of life.
I would have to agree a bit because it was an issue, but I think that the harsh conditions and religion was the main causes for the Pueblo Revolt.
And we're back.
Angelico Chavez claims that tolerant Franciscans gave the Pueblo no cause for revolt.
He confuses race with culture and connects it with basic or natural characteristics to entire peoples. His judgments about entire peoples and his dismissal of Pueblo religion reveal more about Chavez's mind than about his subject.
He says Pueblo leaders claimed religious persecution as a pretext to gain power and revenge.
It's interesting how he asserts one mixed blood leader, Domingo Naranjo, as the leader of the Pueblo Revolt.
Go.
He also expressed how Pueblos worshipped no God, but rather a power.
Pueblo mythology and Pohijimo. Nobody mentioned a certain Naranjo, the Negro or mulatto of Santa Clara operating from a Kivan house. His identity had been kept too well hidden except for that dangerously close description of the previous year. A black giant with big yellow eyes.
Since they hardly talked about him, we got these resources from another book called Afrocentricity, and the academy that talks about essays on theory and practice.
In the book, it stated that Domingo Naranjo had posed as a representative from the god Pohijimo. In the mythology before he left, he told the Indians that there wouldn't be any more war between the Indians and anyone. If there were, he would come back. He would gather all the Indians in one place and separate the good people from the witches. Then earth will crack. Okay.
One of the arguments that was stated was that the Spanish seized the Indians and made them work for them while taking their crops and forced the Indians to labor.
Since the Pueblos worship no god but rather a power, they saw Domingo Naranjo as a leader who
Domingo Naranjo was basically their source of power.
So much power.
A lot of power.
In the book it states that there were so many leaders, but there's a myth that says that there was only one leader, who was Domingo Naranjo.
But as we know, that is false.
because there were many leaders in the Pueblo Revolt.
As you can see, there's so many answers to what caused the Pueblo Revolt. There's not a specific one because there are so many facts and myths that are all put together to make the Pueblo Revolt happen.
Okay. As what Tabari said, there are really a lot of factors that went into what caused the Pueblo Revolt. Because
I think that we really won't know what really happened because things aren't just settled.
Historians, textbooks, and colleges all talk about what caused the Pueblo Revolt. When
Explain one thing.
there are many opinions about what happened, so there isn't a specifically there isn't a specific story.
if the Spanish were treating the Indians bad, how come the Indians couldn't like find a way to get out from the Spanish? How come they couldn't go somewhere else, or how come they couldn't escape?
There were
We already
those.
said that they didn't have any power and they were forced to contribute.
But I'm saying,
That's
what
why
if?
they revolted? One of the reasons they revolted.
Oh,
It's important to know that the Indians saw him as the god from mythology that was talked in the book. The god said that he would come back if there was any war between the Indians with anyone else. So it shows why the Indians would see him as a man of power. Though there might not be enough information about him, there is a little detail in the book that said he's all black and he has yellow eyes. He kept his identity secret, and that's why it's called a mythology. Even though he was written as one of the top leaders, we agree that there was many leaders. I think that this mythology in this book is really interesting to show the readers. The Indians believe in their culture and traditions. This historian said they don't believe in a god, rather a power. It really was an interesting theory in the book that stand out and taught us more about how some people thought this mythology is real and they believe in such a god that could return from ages ago to keep his word.
thank you, Professor Alexander, for taking the time and watching our video on what caused the Pueblo Revolt.
Thank you, Professor Alexander. This was such a fun project to work with. Hopefully, we'll get many more opportunities like this.
Thank you, Professor. It was really a challenge, but working as a team made it easier.
Thank you so much for watching. We really hope you enjoyed our video of what caused the Pueblo Revolt of 1680, reading selected and introduced by David J. Weber. This video was produced by I, Tabari Bowser, Sandra Perez, Sharon Jimenez, and German Hernandez. We worked so hard on this video and gained a really good friendship out of it. We really hope you enjoy. Thank you.
Domingo Naranjo was basically their source of power.
So much power.
A lot of power.
But
To make one big revolt.
Can you see me?
Yeah. Go more down. Okay. Say what you guys.
Domingo Naranjo. Source of power.
so much power.
A lot of power.